Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And since the Crown and Downey case judgment has become public, there have been many attempts to confuse, aided and abetted, I have to say, by some schoolboy journalism over this past couple of days. But some of us aren't interested in he said, she said. We're interested in the truth. We're interested in the truth. And I listened to the usual tripe from the Deputy First Minister about mainstream unionism being influenced by the fringes. I expected that line, actually, Mr Speaker, because there is nothing new under the sun. But what I didn't hear was one word of acknowledgement for the victims of terrorism from the IRA. Not one word. Not one word. But then again, there is nothing new under the sun. And Dr MacDonald told us that there was collusion, and there was collusion between Sinn Féin and our government. Isn't that so painful to say? Our government were involved in this dirty, dirty deal. That is the collusion that took place. What is also true is that we don't have the full parameters of what was put in place, and that is so important. And that is why it is so important that the inquiry that has been announced will take into account any related matters. And just for clarity, that means that anyone can come forward with information, be they victims of violence, criminal violence, be they the special advisor of the former First Minister, David Trimble. So Mr McNary will be able to come forward with any information he has. And indeed, Mr Allister can come forward as well. And I do want to address Mr Allister's point about me being on the run yesterday. First of all, I find it beneath contempt that he would liken me to an on the run. That's the first point I want to make. The second point, a victim of IRA violence is on the run, apparently, but that's okay, Jim. You have to answer that. The second thing is, if he wants to know where I was yesterday, I left the executive, which finished after 4 o'clock. I went home to see my children for 2 hours, and then I went to an Orange event in Enniskillen District Orange Hall. If that's where he wants to know where I was yesterday evening, I'm quite happy to tell him that's where I was. And he can check with one of his colleagues who was at the same event. So, yeah, well, he might have been in the cupboard, that's right. But I'll not be taking any lectures. I'll not be taking any lectures from a man that does absolutely nothing to hold the IRA to account. Absolutely nothing. He stands outside, he rants and raves, but yet does not come forward and helps. And instead of trying to hold them to account, he sits in the back cupboard and says nothing.
Order. Order. The member shouldn't insist. Order. Allow the member to continue. Order.
So this process, which was started back in 2000, 2001, in fact, Jerry Kelly said it started back in 1999 today, developed in an underhand and dirty way, a dirty deal to give a get-out-of-jail-free card to cards who couldn't face the criminal justice system, even if it only meant, after the Belfast Agreement, that they would face a maximum of 2 years. Such brave soldiers couldn't even come forward and put themselves before the justice system. We have heard from the postman of the letters, of the genesis of the scheme, and he referred to a number of documents, some of which don't even mention on the runs, such as the Joint Declaration of 2003, and I look forward to his reference in that document of the on the runs. But as always, don't let the facts get in the way of your spin. I welcome the presence, I have to say, of some victims of criminal terrorism here today, to the gallery today. For them, this is a very painful day. It's been a very painful week, and I acknowledge that. Sinn Féin got a dirty deal, special treatment for their own members. Of course, indeed, some of us remember very well after the Enniskillen bomb, we were told that we would get special treatment, that no stone would be left unturned to find who had perpetrated that awful atrocity. But of course, instead, it was Sinn Féin got special treatment in a very different way. Now, we welcome the announcement of the judicial inquiry, the clarification from the Secretary of State on the letters, but that is not the end, and I want to make this point very clearly today. We will be pushing, we will be monitoring and making sure that we get the answers. We give that assurance today to the victims of violence and to the Northern Ireland public as a whole. Justice is often portrayed as a woman holding the scales of justice blindfolded, as all should be treated equally before the law and equally under the law. Today, Lady Justice stands with her head bowed, battered and bruised, and we need to lift her head up again. We need her to hold her head high again, because for me, that is essential to confidence not just in the justice system, but also in the democratic process here in Northern Ireland. Now, Sammy Wilson said he found it difficult to understand how the Deputy First Minister didn't realise that this was real anger and it wasn't manufactured or synthetic. Well, I'm not surprised Sinn Féin don't understand our anger and our pain, and there has been a lot of pain. And indeed, I want to say to Danny Kinahan that we do all feel his pain here today. Well, some of us do anyway, in relation to his loss. They have always had a cavalier attitude to the rule of law, but they need not underestimate our continuing determination to rebuild confidence, and that must start, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, with the 5 cases we've learnt of this morning, and the Justice Minister referenced them this morning on the radio, the fact that there are 5 cases currently with the DPP and with the NIO. They must immediately go. They have to be stopped immediately. I think that will be a mark of how this issue goes forward. And we will be asking that question of the Secretary of State very, very quickly. I make it very clear today from this House that we're not just dealing with the past, as we've learnt this morning, we're also dealing with the here and now in relation to this system. And we've heard from Basil McRae that we must draw a line under the past. We must forget about the past and move on. But how we deal with criminals and the atrocities that they perpetrated goes to the very heart of our future here in Northern Ireland, and the future of my children and the future of everybody else's children in Northern Ireland. The foundations must be solid, and at the moment they're in severe need of reparation, and we have to make sure that that happens, and we have to make sure that it happens in an open and transparent and public way to make sure that people regain confidence in the criminal justice system. Collectively, we must ensure that that happens. I hope that the House recognises the motion today is an attempt to do that, Mr. Speaker. I hope that the House will support the motion today in the name of the First Minister and the rest of my colleagues, and I look forward to the vote being a positive one so that we can send out a very positive message to the people of Northern Ireland and indeed to the people of the rest of the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Order, members.